Chapter 3, Part 4, The Trinity Does Not Exist in the Bible. The professors of Trinitarianism, the word profess is from Latin words meaning to speak forth or openly declare, often say that the most important truth of Christianity is that God is a Trinity, and that those who do not accept this truth cannot be Christians and cannot receive eternal salvation. One would expect a truth of such magnitude to be clearly stated in Scripture, and not just once, but many times, and in many different ways. Yet present-day Trinitarianism is forced to acknowledge that neither the word Trinity nor the explicit formula of one God who manifests in three spirit persons exists anywhere in the Bible. It must content itself with the argument that the doctrine is implied in the pages of Scripture. However, many unbiased and widely respected Bible reference works strongly disagree with this argument. There is no Trinity in the Old Testament. Quote, the doctrine of the Trinity as such is not revealed in the Old Testament. Encyclopedia of Catholicism, page 1270. Quote, theologians today are in agreement that the Hebrew Bible does not contain a doctrine of the Trinity. It would go beyond the intention and spirit of the Old Testament to correlate its statements with later Trinitarian doctrine. The Encyclopedia of Religion, volume 15, page 54. Quote, the Old Testament tells us nothing by implication of a triune God. There is no evidence that any writer even suspected the existence of a Trinity within the Godhead. Even to see suggestions or foreshadowings or veiled signs of the Trinity is to go beyond the words and intent of the writers. The Triune God, Catholic Trinitarian Edmund Portman. And as regarding Trinitarian claims to the contrary, quote, attempts to trace the origins of the Trinity to the Old Testament literature cannot be supported by historical critical scholarship. These attempts must be understood as retrospective interpretations of Scripture in the light of later theological development. Harper's Biblical Dictionary, pages 198 to 199. Let me try to put that into English. What Harper is telling us is that an examination of the Old Testament reveals that it does not contain the groundwork upon which a Trinity doctrine may be founded, and that those who claim otherwise are actually reinterpreting certain verses of Scripture on the basis of a theological concept, the doctrine of the Trinity, which was only developed long after the Bible was written. Further, some of these retrospective interpretations may have been less than genuine in their intent. Quote, it is exegesis, analysis and interpretation, of a mischievous sort that would discover the Trinity doctrine in the Old Testament. The Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics, James Hastings, volume 12, page 458. There is no Trinity in the New Testament. Quote, as far as the New Testament is concerned, one does not find in it an actual doctrine of the Trinity. A Short History of Christian Doctrine, Bernard Lose. Quote, theologians agree that the New Testament also does not contain an explicit doctrine of the Trinity. The Encyclopedia of Religion, Lindsay Jones. Quote, at first, the Christian faith was not Trinitarian. It was not so in the apostolic or sub-apostolic ages. as reflected in the New Testament and other early Christian writings. Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics, James Hastings. Quote, the formulation one God in three persons was not solidly established prior to the end of the 4th century. Among the Apostolic Fathers, there had been nothing even remotely approaching such a mentality or perspective. The New Catholic Encyclopedia. Quote, to Jesus, the doctrine of the Trinity was apparently unknown. Origin and Evolution of Religion, E. Washburn Hopkins. Quote, Jesus Christ never mentioned such a phenomenon. The idea was only adopted by the Church 300 years after his death. The Paganism in Our Christianity, Arthur Weigall. Quote, the New Testament writers give us no formal or formulated doctrine of the Trinity, no explicit teaching that in one God there are three co-equal divine persons. Nowhere in the New Testament do we find any Trinitarian doctrine of three distinct subjects of divine life and activity in the same Godhead. The Triune God, Trinitarian Edmund Fortman. We will pursue a more thorough investigation of this issue in an upcoming chapter entitled The Disreputable History of the Christian Trinity, and we will consider the implications of the point itself at the conclusion of this current chapter. For the moment, what is worth noting here is that the unfounded and erroneous assertions of Trinitarianism notwithstanding, the simple fact is that neither the word Trinity, nor the doctrine itself, nor veiled signs, nor foreshadowings, nor any suggestion of it exist anywhere within the pages of the Bible.